Welcome to the Mathematics Professional Development Series, sponsored by the Making Math Matter grant, in cooperation and partnership with the Blue Springs School District, Hickman Mills School District, Center School District, Wellington Napoleon School District, and KCPT. With me today is Mrs. Tiffany Welsh. Tiffany, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Tiffany, we were in your classroom and we watched your kids do an amazing lesson. Start a little bit and talk a little bit about what focus or what topic did you want your kids to walk away with yesterday?
Well, I wanted them to understand or interpret remainders. I wanted them to realize that whenever they have a word problem and it's division, it's not always going to be, 6 remainder 2. You have to interpret that remainder. What is that remainder going to mean? What's that question really asking them? Do they want them to put their remainder into another group? Do they want them just to use the remainder? Do they want them to drop the remainder off? A lot of kids get confused on the answer to, what to do with that remainder. So I really wanted them to understand how to interpret that remainder and really look at the question that it's asking.
How many years have you been in education?
19.
19 years.
Yes.
How has math teaching, even the lesson that you taught, how has it changed when you started teaching versus where you are now?
The teaching, even from when I started, is completely different, because then it was still, there was no, I want you to think about this, let's see if you can figure it out. There's different strategies. It was always, this is the way you're going to do it. And it's kind of moved, it's kind of shifted to different thinking about maths in 18, 19 years.
Well, we've worked together for the past 5 years in the Making Math Matter grant. How have those opportunities of professional development really helped change the focus and direction of your class?
It actually has tremendously changed it, because of all of the people that we listen to, the things that we get to receive and get to use in our classroom. It really gets me to think differently about how I go about a lesson and what I really want them to get out of it. It's changed how I teach it. It's changed how I look at it. It makes me love it even more to teach it, and I feel like that love then goes on to my students, because I like teaching it so much because of the things that I've learned through the math grant, and it's really opened my eyes, and I think hopefully opened my students' eyes to really understand math, and not that it's not just a bunch of numbers and doing, it's thinking about it and knowing that they have different ways about going about doing something. So the professional development has really, really been good. It's really grown a lot.
Let's talk about the structure of your classroom and the organization and the way you set things up. I didn't see a classroom with straight rows and you at the front of the classroom. I noticed groups. I noticed kids' work being displayed. I noticed kids coming up, but I also noticed you taking pictures of work and displaying it for the whole class to see. Walk me through the process of how you set up a structure.
I have them in groups because I want them to talk about their thinking. I want them to learn from each other. So if one student says something and the other student may get it, or they can talk through their thinking and really understand what they have to do, and then being able to take a picture of somebody's work and project it, then that really gets them thinking, oh, that's another way to do it, or oh, that's how she wants us to do it, or hey, what did they do different than what I did? And so I'm not putting it up there to show right or wrong. I'm putting it up there for them to talk about. I want it to be a talking piece and for them to understand, like, what's different about this, or how can we change this? Not, look at this is perfect and this is right, or this is wrong, but I want it to be a conversation.
How do you choose those certain students of whose work you push, whose work that you show, whose work that you just pass? What is your strategy for that?
Well, it kind of depends on the goal that I want. So what is the goal that I want them to do for that day? And if I see different strategies that I want to identify, that maybe a lot of them are doing the same strategy and this one student is doing something different, I want to highlight that. I want to highlight things that are maybe a common problem that I want to show that they can identify with. So it kind of depends on the goal that I want the students to get out of. Like, what's my goal for that day? And then it kind of helps me pick and choose the students that I want to highlight.
What tools professionally do you like to use in front of the classroom?
I like to use the iPad. I go back, not even take a picture, but I can just even go through and say, look what so-and-so's doing. Or look how they solved the problem. I don't even have to take a picture. I can just have it up there on the board and they can see it. I love using the whiteboards, and quite frankly, my students like using the whiteboards better than actually the iPads for like the Show Me apps and stuff. They like rather use the actual boards and markers. But they love using those, and any manipulatives that we use the base 10 blocks a lot because that's for a lot of different things that we can use. I love using manipulatives. I used to think that, oh, the manipulatives are too babyish for 4th grade. But I don't think that anymore. I think that the more we use manipulatives, so anything I can have them touch and use is what I like to use.
So in looking at where you were today with the remainders and how they interpret them, where do you go tomorrow? Where do you go next week? And where do you go next month with this lesson?
Well, we're going to continue with word problems and make them a little bit harder. And I want them to get to be able to do 3 and 4 digit and be able to identify what the remainder, is going to interpret. But really, I want them to be able to read the question and understand what's going to happen in it. Because a lot of times they'll read it, they'll see 2 numbers, they'll do something with it. But today's lesson was, what's it really saying to you? What's it asking you? What's the question? And we're going to focus a lot more on that. Not even in just division, just word problems and how do you break it down and read it.
Do you believe in having your students have the freedom to choose any strategy or structure in math, or do you like to push one specific algorithm?
I believe whatever strategy that they come up with that gets them there every time. I do teach different strategies because I want them to be able to do all of them and know which one is better for them. And at a certain time, maybe for this problem, this strategy is better. So I want them to have a whole toolbox of strategies, but I don't make them do one specific strategy. It's kind of whatever you think is going to work for you and what you like best.
What challenges did you encounter during the day's lesson?
The challenges with what I did was sometimes you have a student that is way far left. And trying to get them, and you have to figure out as a teacher, you have to identify when is it time for me to step in a little bit more than I would with someone else. So, when is a student so far left that I have to give a little bit more support than what I would want to at that time. So, having that child and figuring out, should I give him a little bit more? When do I push and when do I lay off? With one student, I had that issue as to how far do I get him going and how far off the road do I have to go to get him to understand that it's not subtraction or it's not division, or that it's subtraction and not division.
I noticed you were differentiating a lot of instruction throughout the day, and you were alternating the productive struggle with your kids. Does that seem to be something that you do every day, or is this specific to the lesson?
No, I try to do that every day. I try to really make them think about it, and, it's not just a sit and get. I want them every day to do that productive struggle so that they do their own thinking and me not do it for them.
What were your final thoughts of the lesson today?
I think it was very, very beneficial because they really understood, after talking to each other, they really understood what to do with the remainder. When it first started, they were like, I don't understand. This doesn't go equally in this. How am I supposed to write a word problem if, 4 doesn't go into 31 evenly? So they were really struggling with that. But at the end, they really understood what they needed to do with the remainder. So I think it was very beneficial to them.
Let's step into Mrs. Welsh's classroom.
All right, so we have been working on word problems. We wrote some word problems where you had to find the number of groups, right? And then we helped some people fix their word problems, right? And we've been working on remainders. I'm going to read this to you, and you're going to talk about it in your group, and you're going to figure out what would be a good answer for this. Write a word problem for 31 divided by 4. It has to get the result of 8. So you have to come up with the word problem that gets a result of the answer 8.
We can't do that because 8 times 4 equals 32, not 30, 31. And it says right here, do not use the word estimate, round, or about.
Right?
So, how are we supposed to do it? How are we supposed to do it?
Think about, so you say that 8 times 4 is 32, right?
Yes.
So how could you make a word problem that's 31 and not 32?
31. But you said the answer has 8. We're going to have to...
I wanted them to realize that whenever they have a word problem and it's division, it's not always going to be, 6 remainder 2. You have to interpret that remainder. What is that remainder going to mean? What's that question really asking them? Do they want them to put their remainder into another group? Do they want them just to use the remainder? Do they want them to drop the remainder off? A lot of kids get confused on the answer to, what to do with that remainder. So I really wanted them to understand how to interpret that remainder and really look at the question.
So what are you saying? Because I like what you're saying. What are you saying?
We should go back, because if we did 4 times 8, that would be too high. So we should just do 4 times 7, which is 28, and then we could probably add stuff. No,
Like 31 minus 28.
Remainder 28.
31 minus 28.
Yeah.
And then that would be the remainder.
Okay. So I want you to continue with that thinking that she just said about a remainder.
Because we probably will have a remainder.
Okay, so why don't you write a word problem where you might have one? So how could you start the word problem? Think about what is your total.
We have 31 groups of 4.
Okay, so how are you going to make that into a word problem? Because remember, your answer has to be 8. So she has 31 bracelets. What are we dividing by? So how can you fit that into?
She wants to put them into groups of 4.
Okay. So how would you start your problem? You're going to have a problem. What's your total?
32. 31.
Okay, so start there.
Okay, so now it has 31 students. 4 of the students did not come. Were 4 absent.
What is your question? Okay, so Maurice has 31 beads, and he wants to put them into groups of 4. How many groups of beads will he have? Okay. So what do you guys think about this one? What would the answer be?
It would have to be a remainder. But we can't say remainder, right? Because it's...
Did you figure yours out?
Yes, it would be 29 groups. No, because we gotta make another.
It would be 7 groups, remainder 3.
But we can't say that.
7, remainder 3 groups.
So we gotta say 7 groups, but 3 left over.
But where does that 3 go?
Yeah, there's.
Because we can't.
So what's your question? Zanae has 31 bracelets. She wants to put them into groups of 4. So what is your question? I have some word problems that I like to show you. Okay, so Maurice has 31 beads, and he wants to put them into groups of 4. How many groups of beads will he need? So what would your answer be with this question? With this question, I want you to work this problem out. What would it be? What would the answer be?
It will be
7 remainder 3.
It would be 7 remainder 3, but you make an extra group to put them 3 into.
3 groups. So,
But you will have to make another group to put them 3 into.
what do you think? Let's look at this one. There are 31 people in the salon. They want to put them in groups of 4. What will be the remainder?
But instead we can't have remainder.
Yeah.
I mean, it could, but you can't say the remainder, because it has to be an answer and a remainder.
No, it can't be no remainder.
You can still just have a remainder.
It can't be a remainder.
Okay. So what do you think? You guys wrote this, so what do you think about what they're saying?
It can't be.
What do you think about your problem that you guys wrote?
I figured it out.
You figured it out? What did you figure out?
We could there are 34 people in the salon. Then we could put a piece of 4. How many groups would there be?
So instead of having the question, what will be the remainder, then your question would be,
How many groups?
how many groups? Okay. Maurice, or I'm sorry, Zanea, could you explain yours again?
Okay, I cannot fix this. Okay. You will have to put it in. It's 7 groups, but you will have to make another group because you can't say 7 remainder 3.
So if I said how many groups of beads, I can't say there are 7 groups, remainder 3?
No, you gotta say there are 8 groups.
Well, is this a problem that will have the result as an answer of 8?
Yes.
Is this a problem that would have the answer as a result of 8?
Yes.
Yes? Good. So you had to take the remainder and do something with it, right?
Yes.
So in this case, what did you have to do to your remainder, Tyrese?
There are 7 groups, and remainder 3, you put them 3 into 1 extra group.
What did she just say?
She said there are 7 groups. She put the 3 into 1 other group.
And how many groups will that be?
8.
So if I want beads, those 3 beads, do I just say, I'm going to throw them away, I don't need them?
No, you put them into 1 extra group.
I put them in their own group. So are there any questions about what we've done today? No. Figuring out interpreting remainders, knowing that you have to read the question and not necessarily look at just the 2 numbers and do something with them, right? You have to actually interpret it. What do they want me to do? Do they want me to add a group? Do they want me to take away a group? Do they want me to use the remainder? Or do they want the answer of just the remainder? All right, good thinking, everybody. You can go ahead and erase your boards.
Let's take a first-hand look at what the students were learning in Mrs. Welsh's class.
What I liked about today's lesson was when you put other people's story problems on the board, and I got to see what was wrong with mine and what was right with mine.
Working with the group helped me understand the question a little further more and answer it a little better, because at first I kind of didn't understand how I would end up with one answer for this problem.
Working together helped me by, I got to work with my partners, and not only did I learn, but my other partners learned too.
One thing I love about math is I have the freedom to use different strategies to answer different questions.
Thanks for watching this Mathematics Professional Development Series sponsored by the Making Math Matter grant in cooperation and partnership with the Blue Springs School District, Hickman Mills School District, Wellington Napoleon School District, Center School District, and KCPT. Thanks again for watching.